You've got a nice sort of streak of like
Here.
Star Trek-esque light leak kind of thing.
Yeah, I don't mind that if
You
you're
like
happy with
being
it.
directed by J.J. Abrams. So we are going to talk about us today.
Everyone's favourite subject, talking about themselves.
Not talking about us.
But yeah, I guess we want to talk a little bit about our backgrounds and kind of how we met or how we got into photography.
Yeah.
Maybe cover that first, how we got into photography, and then how we met and how we started from that.
Well, yeah, that would be the logical conclusion, wouldn't it?
So tell me then, Luke. Tell me about yourself. Tell me your background.
Am I going first? Okay. So I got into photography, other than like always buying little cheap point and shoot cameras when I was young. I properly got into photography about 8 years ago. It was my 30th birthday, and I was like, I want a camera, and I wanted to learn properly how to use a camera. So I was like, I want a film camera. I lived in London at the time. Oh yeah, that was why I wanted a camera, because I worked in Soho and used to go walking around on my lunch break and see loads of like weird and wonderful characters everywhere. And I thought it'd be really cool to like stop and talk to people and take their photo and stuff like that. That never really happened, but that's what made me want to get a camera, spend my lunch breaks like productively. So I got my Leica RE, which is not a good, well, it is a good camera, but it's not a fancy Leica. It's a like SLR from about 92 or something like that, but really, really simple. And it's all it had a really good light meter, and it had what you'd expect from a Leica. You can set your shutter speed, you can set your aperture, and you can, dial your ISO in, and that's it. So I didn't really know anything about photography, but through that I learned like this is how you balance the light, basically, which was really good. And I used to take it everywhere. It was really heavy. I've still got it. It didn't work properly anymore, and it would be cheaper to replace it than to fix it, which is a bit of a shame. It's good for like long exposures. Now is kind of what I use it for, basically because the shutter gets stuck open, so it's kind of all it can be used for. Yeah, it was cool just to walk around with and learn everything on. And then I quickly got the kind of gear bug and was like, well, I like having this camera, but I need an a DSLR, because I would be able to learn more quickly, right? Like I have to wait and get my negatives developed and all that.
Was there any photos that you can remember taking on that camera that you're like proud of?
Yeah, best photos I've ever taken on that camera. Like I've got photos up on my wall downstairs of the first roll of film I ever shot, and one of the first photos I ever took. I'm like, I mean, it was pure fluke, but I was like, that's a really good photo. I've got a picture of my wife somewhere. Can't find it actually. It's really annoying, but it's a really nice picture on Berwick Street in Soho. She's just looking really annoyed at me because immediately just turned into someone who takes their camera everywhere and shoves it in people's faces all the time, and then takes ages composing a shot, and whilst you're making somebody stand there posing for you in the street. Yeah, and then I was like, oh, I need a digital camera. So I bought a Canon, and then kind of used to take both of them everywhere, carry my digital camera around in my hand, but then if there was something I was like, that's a cool scene, I'm going to kind of capture it on film as well. And
Take
then
time to compose the photo, so to speak.
yeah, so then I'd like get my Leica out of my bag, and then I was like, oh, I need something a little bit more portable. So then you start looking into like little mirrorless cameras, and yeah, that kind of annoying desire to keep buying new things kind of cropped up for a little while. And then I was like, oh, I should really learn how to, to shoot properly, I guess. But looking back on it, I knew everything I needed to know, which is in terms of, you know, how to work a camera. Really, what I needed to do was probably just go out more and keep taking photos all the time and talk to other photographers. But instead what I did was a B-Tech and just spent 2 years learning how to do Photoshop, which isn't really what I wanted to do. I wanted to do photography. So it kind of killed my love for it for a bit. And after that, for a few years, I didn't really take any photos. I did a bit, but just not very often. And I certainly didn't I kind of stopped taking my camera with me everywhere.
It's funny you say that, because just going back to like the Photoshop part, which is in some ways what killed it for you, or killed the passion part of it for you. I was the same at college, because I did photography at college and I just got lumped on Photoshop, but that wasn't what I wanted to do. I wanted to learn how to take photos, not edit bad photos. But to this day now, I can't really use Photoshop. I can do basic stuff with it, but the passion of trying to take a good photo first try is, regardless if it's on film or digital, you don't want to do much editing, do you? You know, you've got to. I think going back to what you're saying, when you started doing photography, you had the passion to kind of learn how to use the camera and take a good photo, where a lot of people, myself included, I just assumed I was an expert. I was like, yeah, I can take a photo. I'll get a camera and go out and take photos. But if you wanted to learn how to take a good photo, that's good. But yeah, I mean, carry on from.
What it's just sort of made me think of was that, like, I don't have a problem with people who take photos and then edit it to destruction kind of thing in Photoshop and create something new. I think it's all photography. It's just I haven't got the patience to do that sort of thing. Also, that's kind of my job, is like, you know, graphic design and stuff like that. So in my free time, I don't want to do that really.
Yeah.
So I can, you know, obviously I can use it. I'd rather spend more time out taking photos than editing them afterwards. I suppose I kind of miss that, like beginners, not beginner's luck, although that first roll of film I shot was great. But
I was going to say that, because if you, the reason I asked that question earlier is that you said, you know, you had some good photos off that first roll, but I thought you was going to lead on to say you was only joking, because I can tell you now, my first roll, every single photo was fire. But looking back on them now, they were all shit. Do you know what I mean? Like, there wasn't a good photo on it. But yeah, you had some good photos.
Definitely got some, you know, over time took some really bad ones, but it's got some really nice compositions, I guess. Like, it's all kind of by accident, or was it by accident? I don't know. I thought I knew what I was doing and I got some good photos. So, you know, it was the whole thing of, not when you don't know everything about what you're doing and you haven't watched loads of YouTube videos and all this stuff, you just go out and do something. So like with photography, I just went out. I don't even know why I bought that camera.
What appealed to you with photography to get into it? Like, where did it come from? Did you have friends that did it, or?
Always enjoyed it, but I'd never bought anything more than a little, you know, like a point and shoot. When I was little, I always used to have like disposable cameras and stuff like that, and then go on holiday and buy a 35mm, but I always used to buy stuff like that, but I was never really like into anything more than just sort of taking snaps and stuff like that. But I think it was that, like, walking around Soho every day going, this is, you know, it looks cool. And I remember there was one guy walking along and he had a bright green suit and he was quite old and he just looked awesome. And I was like, he would be wicked to stop and take a photo of. And I remember that was when I was like, I'm going to buy a camera. And then one of my mates lived in kind of near Shoreditch, and there is a shop still called Red Dot Cameras, and they sell like secondhand and new Leicas. So I went in there, like they had all the, you know, like the M6s and M3s and stuff like that, which are obviously quite expensive and a bit much for a beginner's camera. But they had this RE that was like 200 quid or something. And I thought, well, I'm getting it for my birthday and it's a decent, it'd be nice to have something decent as well. So might as well. Also, I saw Ray Fiennes in there, which is quite exciting. What I kind of miss is that real basic understanding and not knowing a lot about what I was doing, but knowing enough to go out and just take photos without really thinking about it.
Yeah.
And then when I bought like a Canon D something 60 or whatever it's called, and now I had a digital camera and I could afford to just fire shots off all the time. Spent a long time just playing with the settings and going, oh right, so when I open the aperture up, that's what it does. And when right, okay, that makes sense. So it helps in that respect. And then I just used to walk around the streets just not shoving a camera in people's faces. That sounds a bit,
just looking at things a bit differently to capturing everyday life.
Yeah, it sounds a bit aggressive, but just taking photos on the street of people in a scenario, well, just normal street photography of a scenario that I thought was interesting looking, and not caring about what people thought of me, because I didn't realize I was doing a thing. I didn't realize I was doing street photography. I just thought I was wandering around with a camera in my hand. And so
that's the thing now, though, isn't it? Like it's almost like an art form, being like a certain type of street photographer, because obviously street photography comes in lots of different kind of forms, but street photographers that are passionate about it, they become ninjas, don't they? They blend in.
But when you don't know what you're doing, or you don't realize that you're doing something, it's quite, like, looking back on it, it was really quite a thing to do. Just see people standing somewhere and be like, and just not, taking my time and taking photos. And I had lots of people come up to me and say, like, what are you doing? But not in a, what are you doing? But in a sort of, oh, what are you up to? And I was like, oh, I'm just taking your photo. Is that all right? And then, sort of people would ask to see it or not. But yeah, I've got so many photos of people just kind of staring right into the camera with this like this look on their face of like, oh, you've taken my photo, and then moving on. And if anyone had asked me to delete a picture, I would have deleted it. But I wasn't sort of trying to hide what I was doing. Didn't take a photo properly for years. I shot a friend's wedding and really enjoyed it.
You enjoyed it? I've done a couple of weddings, and they were the most nerve-wracking I've ever been taking photos, because you know, it's not like you can redo them the day after if they go tits up.
I was nervous, and I did get somebody else I knew who was going to bring his camera as well. But I did really enjoy doing it, and it kind of made me go, oh, this is cool. This is good fun. And then I started working for this company, and they wanted me to do loads of photography for the company. And I just thought, this is great. And again, just started taking my camera everywhere with me again. But then the whole kind of gear thing raised its head again, and you're like, oh, I need probably a smaller camera, something that I can shove in my pocket. But just would buy like, Ricoh 500G, cheap little 35mm camera that fit in my coat pocket. Started taking that everywhere. And then, just kind of, that's been the last couple of years, just shooting as often as possible and going through the whole. I think the longer that I do it, the more I hate every single photo I take at the moment.
It's weird how you go through stages like that, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely in one of them stages at the moment. But then I look back on stuff I took a few months ago, and I'm like, oh, actually, it's quite good. That's all part of it, isn't it?
I think that's a big part of it. I was actually talking to someone on Instagram today who sent us a message who said, "Oh, I'm running out of photos. I'm going to have to start looking through some of my older work." And I was like, "Yeah, that's amazing. Like, that's I love doing that, because what you thought was garbage one day, you look at the next day and you think it's gold, and you've taken it 2 years ago." I think that's one of the beauties of photography, how you can look back on it every time.
Really nice. Yeah, I found some gig photos I took the other day, and I just was like, I never posted anything like that really. And it was, I just used to go, I'd either be playing a gig and I'd take my camera with me, or go and watch bands, and like, you know, small bands or whatever, and I'd take photos of them and just send them to them and go, there you go, do what you want with them. It's never really occurred to me that there's probably some decent stuff for Instagram or whatever in there. And I found one the other day and was like, wow, that's a really cool photo. So I should probably post some of them, really. Go on then. So how did you get started?
Well, a little bit different, to be fair. As you know, I've skateboarded since I was a little kid. So I've always been the younger one in my circle of friends when I was growing up. And I think it was because I skateboarded, we all hung around at the same park every day. You hang around with whoever's there. I just happened to be one of the younger ones. I had schoolmates that were there as well, but I was one of the first people to get a camera. And this was like before they were kind of like hugely mainstream. And I had like little DV video recorders. I got really into filming, not so much photography. And then from that, it kind of evolved into photography. But I probably didn't pick up a camera, well, like properly pick up a camera thinking this is something I want to learn until I was probably a year or so out from going to college. Because I remember at the time I was going to college. Well, before I went to college, I was finishing school and I didn't know what I wanted to pick for college. And I was going to do like bricklaying or something, because at the time I was like, you know, I need a career. My granddad owned a building company, so I just thought it was like natural. And then it was only like, you know, it was coming up to the deadline where you need to pick something to do. And I just remember I was just like, well, I don't want to be a bricklayer. I mean, nothing against them. It just wasn't what I wanted to do. So I just picked 3 subjects that I was interested in, and photography was one of them. I did photography, fine art, and film. I actually did media studies, but I dropped out of that pretty quick. But that was only because I couldn't get to college on time. That's a whole other story. But yeah, so I dropped out of that and carried on doing art, photography, and film, which I loved. And the first year was amazing. It was, you know, I had the bug, so I wanted to go out and take photos. And you know, I learned how to print film in a darkroom. I learned how to use Photoshop. I learned how to make a pinhole camera. And then at the same time, I got a job at a photography studio, only part-time. I think I worked 6 hours on a Saturday, and I think I did half a day in the week sometime. And it was just, you know, a white backdrop photography studio, people coming in to get whatever, family portraits, whatever it was. But I swear I learned more in a couple of months there than I did at college. And then I remember the 3rd year I was in college, or whatever year it was, I ended up doing a night course because I dropped out of doing art at college so I could concentrate on film and photography. But I left that studio I was working in and got a job at Venture Portraits. I don't know if you've heard of them. I'm pretty sure they're still going. I'm not too sure. I know it's like a franchise business. But I got a job working at Venture Portraits, but I was actually doing sales. But I wanted to be a photographer. I wanted to work in the studio. Every chance I got, I'd go into the studio. And then, yeah, I remember a job came up to be a photographer, but my boss at the time said I couldn't do it because I was the only one on like the sales team. So I remember I handed him a notice pretty much a couple of weeks later, and then ended up worked in retail, and then ended up going into more of a office-based sales role. So that's where I kind of had a couple of years out, if you know what I mean. But again, I've always skateboarded since I was a kid. I've always skateboarded. So like the artistic side of that has always appealed. And, you know, working in the studios, I was fortunate enough to be in a position where I could borrow the studio gear. I probably can't even do that nowadays. But yeah, I think I had the same as you. I think I had a Canon D60 or whatever it was. Do you know what? I can't even remember. Like I said earlier, I just assumed that I was an amazing photographer. And I was like, yeah, I'm going to be a famous skateboard photographer, filmer. I'm going to go on tour, travel. But then as you get a bit older, you kind of realise that I was quite happy doing photography and film just as a hobby. Do you know what I mean? I just enjoyed doing it. Then you turn 18 and then you start going out drinking, going to gigs, whatever it might be. And photography kind of took a bit of a backseat. Not just photography, it was more photography and film. But similar to you, I started off in kind of like digital photography. I had point and shoots, film cameras that I would just snap of me and my friends doing whatever we were doing at the park, probably filming our own version of Jackass at the time or whatever it was. And I used to make skate videos all the time. Remember, like me and a couple of friends at the time would just literally film as much footage as we can and would put out a video just for us and friends, basically. It was never going to go anywhere. Then picked up photography again, probably around the sort of time that we met, which was when we worked together. So I don't know if that's a good little transition to go into how we met.
So how did we meet? Comic-Con?
Yeah. We didn't meet at a Comic-Con show. Well, we did actually meet at a Comic-Con show, but you worked for Comic-Con, and it was my first. Well, and obviously I got a job working at Comic-Con, and we met through that, didn't we?
So that was your first day at Comic-Con, was coming to Comic-Con?
My first day at Comic-Con was the London Comic-Con show at the Excel Centre,
right?
Which was pretty insane. I even brought Vicky, my girlfriend. She came with me on my first day. I got encouraged to do that. I don't think I actually did any work. It was more of a meet and greet. It just so happened to fall on the day that I started was the London show.
Had you been before?
Never been. What I knew of Comic-Con was Pool. You know, the film Pool. That's what I assumed. I just thought it was in New York or San Diego. That's all I knew.
I thought you were going to say, what's that terrible program? Big Bang Theory.
Big Bang. Oh, no. It was just, I only knew it from what I'd kind of seen in films. But yeah, as soon as you get there, you just realise that there's a huge community. Well, you know, how many people did we have go to the shows?
Like
hundreds of thousands.
100,000. It would be about 100,000 over 3 days or whatever it was. Yeah, but it was crazy. Oh, it was a great thing to do. When we were working there, that was totally in my dip of not taking any photos ever. And
I was taking photos at the show,
right,
and making little videos and whatnot. But again, I didn't tell anyone I was doing that. I'm pretty sure I've still got an edit from a show, but again, I think I filmed it on a GoPro because you know what it was like working there. We were there for the week because we set up for 4 days before the actual show started. And I just pretty much had a GoPro on me the whole time. I would strap it to my chest or whatever and just have a look through the footage.
So my last day at Comic-Con was at the London show. Obviously not that one, but
our last day was together. We had remember we got matching hoodies.
I've still got my hoodie. It's really comfy.
I've still got mine.
Yeah.
Our boss thought it was a good time to. Well, we didn't get sacked or anything. Luke moved on to bigger and better things, and I decided to go travelling with my missus. So we just so happened to both be leaving the company on the same day, and we got given these awfully good hoodies that said it had the Comic-Con logo on the front or whatever it was. I think it was our name in a certain font, wasn't it?
Yeah, in wingdings or whatever.
Yeah, and then on the back, I can't remember mine said something to do. I can't believe I've moved on from Comic-Con because I want to go traveling or something stupid like that. I don't know what yours said.
Was it something like I left Comic-Con to go traveling and all I got was this lousy?
That's it.
Probably. Yeah. I think I got a slightly more disparaging one, but I don't remember exactly what it said. But yeah, that last day, it suddenly occurred to me, I don't know why I hadn't thought about it before, I should take my camera to these events. And that last show we did, I took my camera and gave it to Tim. He took a load of photos, and I took a few and was like, why did I never think about taking photos at these events before?
But yeah, I mean, that's got nothing to do with photography at all, but fun little story of how we kind of met, I guess.
Yeah, so we used to play D&D, didn't we?
See, that makes me laugh. We're both passionate about photography or film or whatever it might be at that time. Yet we played Dungeons and Dragons together, but didn't know that we liked photography. I guess we have somewhat similar interests in music or the music scene, especially from where we live. So we probably spoke about that more. And then obviously you talk about work, don't you? But photography never kind of really got brought up.
Yeah, we used to spend lunch times playing 2-hour D&D sessions and then do some kind of longer ones. I think when you got back from traveling, we had a massive D&D session.
Oh yeah, because I came back, didn't I?
You came back and I.
Oh, you came back as well.
Yeah, and we did it, and we were sat next to each other, and then I think, and this was, so it's those weird little serendipitous moments that you sat next to me, and I think you put something on Instagram about us playing D&D, and because I saw you doing that, I followed you on Instagram because I
Yeah.
saw like, but otherwise I probably wouldn't have thought to do that. Then I
Yeah.
saw that you started posting photos on, like, proper photos, and I started
Somewhat.
doing a bit of that. So if it hadn't been for that D&D session, I
There
might
would be
follow,
no film.
yeah, exactly. I'd have never followed you on Instagram. We'd have never, probably what, a year later, about a year, I think it's about 6 months after that epic D&D session, you
So
were,
thanks, Tim. Appreciate that, Tim.
I love that. I've still got, did you get your photo?
It's probably one of the best presents I've ever received, and I can remember my D&D character's name. It was Magna Bastarius, or
Nice.
something very similar to that. And yeah, Tim, who worked at Comic-Con, he was the guy that set it all up. He was the dungeon master, wasn't he?
I loved him. Yeah,
Yeah, as a gift, I remember he got all of our fictional characters drawn up by one of the artists at the show
yeah,
and gave them to us. I thought that was amazing.
it's so good. I've still got mine framed downstairs, and it's, yeah, my name was Noah Vanderhoff, which is a name of a character from Wayne's World. But I was trying to be clever. He was intelligent and like me, so he was like, he knows things, so he's a Noah. So I spelled Noah,
Yeah,
Anower. Thought I was being really clever, and I was a
yeah.
pro.
Yeah,
So
that's how we kind of connected through that,
yeah,
I guess. And then I guess we both found out that we were into photography. And yeah, we just started reconnecting, didn't we, through that? It was more focused around the photography rather than anything else.
yeah, and you posted a photo. I posted a photo, and you said, "Oh, that's cool. I'd like a, I'll have a print of that." And I said the same about one of yours, and you said, I remember messaging you. I remember feeling quite nervous as well. You said, "Oh, you can post it to me," and I was like, maybe we could meet for a coffee. Maybe you could be my friend. And then the whole lockdown happened, so never happened.
Yeah, that went tits up, didn't it? But that, yeah, I think, but that, I remember the print that you wanted to buy because it was, I think it was one of the first that I'd posted that was film rather than digital. Because I remember no, sorry, we were going to swap. Sorry, mate, it wasn't that good. But yeah, because I was shooting digital or just messing around with videos. And yeah, I know it sounds cheesy, but when I remember getting a GoPro and I was just filming loads of skating. Then I was taking the GoPro, I took the GoPro traveling with me and I made just cheesy little videos from that. And then I had some friends at the time. I'll probably do another video. We can do another podcast, shout out to inspirations, I guess. But one of my friends was really into photography at the time, still is now, has some amazing work. A couple of friends, which inspired me to start shooting film again because I hadn't done it in so long and I didn't know as much as I know now. Again, like you said, it was just more point and shoot cameras and somewhat experimenting with film stocks, but not knowing how the camera kind of, or each camera operated individually. And then yeah, like us all, I just got the bug. I just wanted to go out to take photos to learn from that.
Do you know what, as well, talking about people, yeah, we'll probably do a whole episode or two on it, but like Paul Hughes,
Our
who,
friend Paul.
yeah, who is an amazing photographer, and it's all he's ever done. He did photography at college, and then he just has always worked as a photographer, and he's amazing. And I saw him probably about 6 months after I'd started taking quite a lot of photos on this little Ricoh 35mm. I think I was playing a gig and he happened to be there, and he was like, "Oh, I've seen you posting all these photos on Instagram. They're amazing." And I was like, "Oh, no, they're not. They're terrible." And he was like, "No, they're really inspiring." how are you doing it? And I was like, I couldn't believe he was asking me, because I was like, you're my mate, but also look up to you as a photographer. So I was like, oh, just have this little 35mm camera I take everywhere with me. So it's it's just always sort of just snapping away, really. I didn't realize they were any good. And then I sort of started looking at them a little bit differently and thinking, oh, maybe they were right. And then begins the slow descent into overthinking everything and thinking everything you're taking is kind of rubbish.
I was saying to you the other day, wasn't I, about I went out to take one type of photo so I could learn from it, and I just forget. So you end up going out taking photos. But I don't know, lockdown's kind of really affected how I would take a photo, but I feel like it's pros and cons. Like the pros are I've learned how to use the cameras I've got a lot more, but not necessarily in a way that I'd want to shoot them. So, I've gone out and I just take my camera everywhere with me if I go on a walk or something, which is, there's not a lot else I can really do. It's not like we can go exploring around town, is it?
Yeah, definitely. I'd say the same. Like the lockdowns I can go for a walk, so I can go out and take photos, and I enjoy just lining a shot up. The more I take photos, the more I enjoy taking them, I guess. In terms of what can you get into in photography, you can get into taking photos or getting really into like the gear and technical side of things. So I should say it this way around: the less often I go out and take photos, the more I start thinking, maybe I need a new camera. Maybe I need to buy a new lens or whatever. And then you realize, well, no, I don't. Just need to go out and take photos more often. Or but if I had that new lens, I'd have more of a like impetus to go out and do some slightly different photographs with a slightly wider lens or whatever. But it's rubbish. I definitely, like, I'd be totally honest, like I enjoy going out and taking photos more with a little rangefinder because I like the way they look. I think they look cool. I don't like taking a DSLR everywhere with me because A, it's heavy, but B, I don't like the way they look. And I know that's a really like rubbish posery thing to say, but it's kind of true.
You're a hipster photographer then.
Yeah, totally. But it does make me think it doesn't matter what the inspiration to go out and take a photo is. If it makes you go out and take photos, then it's okay. So I've got a little shelf with all my cameras on, and I look at them and go, oh, I love that camera. It looks so cool. And I grab it and think I'm going to go for a walk. So go out and take some photos, and half the time you just delete them all. And sometimes you take a really cool shot.
That's the beauty of it as well, isn't it? Like you can get inspired in different ways on a daily basis. And I think definitely since we've started Front as well, we can see different ways of working. And, from the community side, I've been inspired by the things that we get to see, which is wicked. Because for me, like you, I didn't know anything about street photography. I just wanted to go out and take photos, and I lived in town. So I walked around and took photos, and then I got into, I wanted to try and capture something that was happening, and I didn't care about the light or composition or anything. I just wanted to capture that moment, which is cool. But then I look back at those photos and I realized that they weren't great photos because I took it in the shade or I didn't have the right settings on my camera. And then then you kind of naturally learn yourself about how to take a better photo, which, is completely opinionated anyway. But I started thinking about the lighting more, or what settings I'm using, or, how to set up the camera more, what film stock to use and stuff like that, or what I'd prefer if it looked better in black and white or colour, and all those things go through your head. And then I'd get home and I'd start watching YouTube videos. And I remember I was actually watching a skate video from a YouTuber called John Hill, who's a wicked skateboarder, and he collaborated on a video with Willem Verbeeck or Verbeeck or however you pronounce his name. And I was like, oh, he seems pretty cool. And that's how I discovered Willem. And then from his channel, he obviously connects with like Corey and Matt Day and Joe Greer and stuff like that. So then it kind of, obviously they're huge photographers, especially influencers on YouTube and stuff like that. So I had hours and hours and hours of videos to watch. And I got slowly sucked into that kind of circle of learning. And then from those videos, I'd find other photographers. Madison Beach being one of them, Brae being one of them, Sophia being one of them. And all of a sudden, every day of the week, there was probably a new video dropping that I could watch from a photographer that I looked up to. And then I discovered Jason Lee. Obviously, a lot of you might know him through photography, but I know him from being a professional skateboarder from the day I started skateboarding. So to find out that he did photography was awesome. I felt like there was that relationship, unspoken relationship, not that I'm friends with him.
Yeah.
But, do you know what I mean? There was inspiration there, which, how deep do you want to go down the rabbit hole?
My brother bought me a book when I first got a camera that it's called Street Photography Now, just kind of like loads of classic street photography images. And I remember looking at it at the time and being like quite interested in it, but didn't really sort of fully absorb it. And then like I looked at it again recently and was like, this is such a cool book. It's really interesting. And I remember looking at it again a couple of years ago when I started sort of picking up the camera a lot more, and sort of trying to find some of the people who were featured in it, some of them more of their work, and looking on Instagram. And then I suddenly discovered, like I can find all these other street photographers, through hashtags and stuff like that. And I thought, to be honest, I saw a lot of street photography work and thought, what is this? This is just going out and taking a photo in the street. Like,
so you didn't really understand it because you wasn't kind of studying it.
I didn't think it was very good. Like, not the whole concept of it. I just thought a lot of stuff that I was seeing, it was a total like, well, I could do that. And I had my camera with me for work reasons. So I just went out, drove to a nearby town, and literally just walked up and down the street, just going, well, that'll do. Here's a road sign. Oh, look, there's someone walking past. And like, now I look back at them, I'm like, well, yeah, there's nothing interesting about those images. But from that, I found Sean Tucker and was like, right, that's it. That's how to do it. And I
remember when we started talking about photography, we both knew who Sean Tucker was. That was one of the first things we actually spoke about, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Because I think I might have sent you a link to one of his videos and you were like, I'm going to meet him in a month or whatever it was. Do you know what I mean?
Mm. Yeah. Oh yeah. Cause I was going to his gallery thing and I did, I met him briefly, which was really cool, but like I really, really love his work. And I love what he's doing now, how he's kind of progressed from that classic, light and shade thing that he was doing. But it was a very cool thing to see and to go, oh wow, that's something to like aspire. It's a long way down the line, but that's something to aspire to. That is amazing work, and that's somebody who goes out probably every day taking photos and really refining how he works and seeing like shots and all that kind of thing. And that really, really got me into it, and like looking at, again, it's really boring, but like what equipment does he use and all that sort of thing. But then finding other people, and so there's a guy called Tatsuo Suzuki, and his thing is like, buy a Ricoh GR2, put it in auto mode, and so you don't have to worry about anything, and just start taking photos and don't worry about the quality and anything like that. And I was like, that's a totally kind of different way of looking at it, but kind of made me think, you just need to do whatever works for you. And that's why I thought, little camera, I want to shoot on film again, a little camera I can just stick in my pocket and take everywhere with me. That's what I need. And bought this little 15 quid camera, bought rolls and rolls of cheap Color Plus for like 4 quid or whatever, and just started shooting all the time again.
See, I didn't start watching Sean Tucker videos until I'd already bought the Ricoh GR2. And I only bought the Ricoh GR2 off the back of a friend's recommendation. And one of my friends, he's a wicked photographer, predominantly does like a lot of skateboard photography. I remember seeing him at the pub and I was like, what camera are you what camera are you using at the moment, mate? You know, like what gear you got? And he pulled it out of his pocket, and I was like, that's the coolest thing I've ever seen. And he stood there and he showed me through the camera like some of the features it had. And I was hooked. I was sold. I was like, yeah. And when I was doing some research on it, that's when I found Sean Tucker. It's weird though, because when you think about how kind of your photography path can take sudden U-turns in the road, but you're still kind of learning from it. Because I remember I was just like, well, I've got a Ricoh, I'm going to go out and take as many street photos as I can. And I remember saying to you, I was setting a challenge every lunch of going out and trying to take at least one photo I was somewhat happy with. And like I said, not every day it worked, but it was always fun to go out and try and take a photo, think about the photo I'm taking. But with street photography, you have to be a little bit quicker on your feet, don't you? You don't want to miss a moment necessarily. But I only shot manual because I didn't care about, at the time, I wanted to learn. Do you know what I mean? It wasn't about trying to take the best photo. It was about learning how to use the camera and use manual setup. So then when I started shooting a lot more on film again, I understood how to use the camera. I had to learn how to use the camera, but I understood what I needed to do to take a good photo.
Weirdly, I've never shot anything other than manual because of that Leica. It did have like an aperture priority setting, but I didn't understand what that was. But I knew if I set it on M, I'd set my ISO looking through it because it had a pretty easy to understand light meter. If I turned the aperture ring, the dial went up and down to tell me what shutter speed I should be on. So I was like, well, that's easy. So just put it to the right thing and just take loads of really perfectly exposed photos. And that was it. So when I started shooting like digital, and I still don't really understand how to shoot in like aperture priority or shutter priority, because I tried to do it last night in the dark and I couldn't get it to work properly. I was like, I'll just go back to fully manual. But did you think, because, and again, do you think the GR2 looked cool?
I thought it was the dopest looking thing I'd ever seen. I thought it was slick. I loved it. What appealed to me with the Ricoh is the pure size of it and how powerful it was for the size. Or did you not like the look?
Still don't. I think they look terrible. I think they look, I don't know what it is. I think I've warmed to it a bit more since Paul showed me the GR, whatever it was called. He's got the original like 35mm version. And I was like, oh, okay, this kind of looks cool. There's something about the aesthetics of it, because I was going to buy one and then was like, no, I'm buying a X Pro 2 because they look way cooler. But now I've got a GR2 just because there was one going really cheap, and I do take it. It's like kind of always in my coat pocket. Still don't really like the way it looks. I don't particularly like the way it functions, but I like the way it takes decent photos. So
it doesn't really look like a camera in a lot of ways. I completely get that, but I feel like the more you use it, you realize how powerful they are for the size they are. But then I think about that. So I've got a Ricoh, I've got a tiny little Olympus 35 DC or whatever it's called, and then I've just bought the RB67. For size comparison, I couldn't get a lot bigger unless I went up to large format or the smallest little point and shoot digital camera you can imagine. But again, even the RB67 is 100% manual, so I love it. That's been a real learning curve using that recently.
Maybe we should go out one day. I'll take my 110 baby Diana, that's about big, and you can take the Mamiya, however you say it, and I'll see. We'll compare 110 film versus 120.
Yeah,
They sound like they should be quite close in size, don't they?
Yeah. Well, we'll see. Maybe we can do another. Well, maybe we could do a video.
That'd be a good idea. Comparison
video, little photo walk. Well, I guess that's a good time to say that we are actually building a YouTube channel. So yeah, stay tuned for more videos. We're not going to just do podcasts. We're going to continue to do podcasts. We'll be interviewing some of our ambassadors.
There'll be other videos coming out, like whatever weird ideas we have, and when we're not in lockdown anymore, we can go out and make videos of us, and they'll be about as interesting as this has been, maybe.
Yeah, and I'm not too sure when you're going to be listening to this or watching this, but the website will be going live in May.
Oh yeah, and if you aren't, sign up for the mailing list, because I'm in the process of writing an email. Imagine that, to all the people who signed up for the mailing list, and with a bit of an update of what we're doing. So if you want a slightly longer update to what we're doing, then get on the mailing list.
And it might be worth, I don't know if we can say, but we are 99.9% sure that if you are registered on the mailing list before the front website launches, there will be some kind of gift to you.
It's not like a physical thing.
An offer, should we say?
Yeah, that you'll only get through the mailing list. So it's worth signing up for that.
Yeah, and that's on our website, which is front.photography. And obviously you can always follow us on our Instagram, which is front.photography_. Always send us a message on there and ask questions. Tag us in your photos, use our hashtag frontphotography. And yeah, if you are registered to our mailing list, then yeah, you can always drop us an email and we'll try and share your work as much as we can.
Cool. All right, that'll do.
That'll do. Are we done for this episode?
Yeah, well done.
Well, I've got a list of other things to talk about, but we didn't even get onto them. Tune in next time. Bye.
And it totally.
Sorry, mate.
What?
Someone's at my door.
It's all right.
Hang on 2 seconds. Is that someone at the door, Vicky?